think we are, we are going to be live. Awesome. Just give me 1 second as I get stuff set up here. Open up one new tab. I want to make sure I can capture all the comments. Just give me 1 second. Okay, so we are going to get started. Welcome. I'm really excited. As we go on, please feel free to ask questions as we go along in the chat next to here. Awesome. Let's see. So just let me know. Let me know as we get going. If you have any questions, there's the chat on the right side there, and I'll try to monitor it as close as possible while not also distracting myself as well. But yeah, awesome. So thanks everyone for joining. We're going to go through quite a bit of topics today, and as always, it's open to a Q&A session, so you can ask questions as we go along. Please note that doing a live session is very challenging, but it's also really rewarding for me because I get to interact with all of you and hear what your concerns are and the questions that you have as we talk through these topics. Today, we're going to be focusing a lot on tactical and actionable advice related to career changes or what's next for your career journey, and really taking control of your journey and the next steps for you so that you can succeed in whatever that definition of success is for you. So you can take those next steps. What are the things that you need to do to make those next steps in your life and in your journey to get to where you want to go? And there's a lot of different approaches and a lot of different ways that you can go about that. And there's also a lot of advice and resources online. So we'll go through some of those tools. My hope is that this will be helpful for you. That's really my primary goal. And then secondarily, we're going to introduce a new passion project that I have coming up. Now, I want to be clear, this will just be a on the weekends type of passion project, but at least just starting to lay the foundations. But I want to communicate that with all of you and just let you know what's kind of the latest in the Nate Studio Desk world. Okay, so without further ado, let's get started here. I'll jump through the presentation. And first things first, just as a reminder and as something, what is Nate Studio Desk? How did this sort of come to be and where we're at right now and what we're striving to do? First of all, I am not sponsored by anyone. It's just me and the weekends that I have to work on this project. And the goal is really to share and make knowledge more accessible to all of you and to hopefully help you succeed in your journey. I think there's a lot of great resources out there, and there's also a lot of new tools and digital technologies available, and it's really challenging to navigate and leverage all those tools to help you. So we kind of balance both those acts of both teaching tips and tricks of the latest tools so that you can succeed in your career, as well as talking about topics related to how you can do this on a more tactical level as well and provide actionable resources in terms of how you can help succeed in your career. So right now, Nate Studio Desk is a YouTube channel. It really started off as inspiration as literally my studio desk I messed this up last time too, a studio desk in the education of architecture education. And I really wanted to make education more accessible. It was really challenging for me to get into grad school to begin with. And I just love this idea of an architecture studio, but just making it more accessible to more people so that we can share our ideas with one another. we're all in this together. So I just figured let's just help each other and share advice, and we can go from there, and hopefully it will be helpful. So that was the inspiration of Nate's Studio Desk, and I hope you've enjoyed the videos so far. We have YouTube tutorials, we have topics on AEC and tech, transitioning out of architecture, and a whole host of other interviews and other types of videos as well. So I hope you found those helpful, and we'll continue to push those out and release more content as we go along. Okay, so next up, I'm just going to introduce the beginnings of a passion project that I'm excited to announce, and it's going to be called the DigiLab Studio. So I want to explain, just give me a second to give some background to this project, and I promise as well, we'll pretty soon get into some of the career advice items. But some background to this project. So the first item, just want to be clear as well, this is really just laying the foundation work. This is just a side passion project that I have to continue the work of making knowledge accessible, direct to people, and also free as well. So one of my first projects that I worked on was I created what was called the Makerspace in Guatemala. And that was essentially a carpentry training space that was in Guatemala that trained carpenters, both men and women. And this was a substantial step in connecting between someone having a meaningful and rewarding career and job, as well as the training that they would need in order to successfully have that job. So, and to do that job as well. So there was this really nice synergy with that project. And by the way, I was not just the only one. I was one of 3 people who really started that initiative. And it was a broad initiative that covered a lot of different things like workshops and training, and as well as like doing international trips. But yeah, I just want to set that context there. So for the Maker project though, it was really amazing to see both the synergy between providing the tools, resources, and the education, and then providing meaningful work that actually provided a good wage for that context that I was in Guatemala. And so I kind of want to bring that concept really to Atlanta, Georgia, US, and around the world in terms of what are the skills that people need, the knowledge and skills, and connect those to jobs that's more relevant to today and to what's happening next. And this is partly a critique on the current educational system. I do think that architecture school for me was absolutely amazing and essential in my understanding and skills and learning, but it was very challenging to get into grad school. First of all, to set the stage, I barely graduated 8th grade. Luckily, I did. And I basically failed the SATs, and it was very challenging. I didn't even know I was going to go to college, and eventually I did end up going to college and getting into at least a couple schools. And but it was really challenging. It was a challenging process, and that was mostly because also in high school I had some like learning differences as well. And so getting into school was an enormous step for me. So I think we lose sight in terms of how challenging it actually is to get into a university. In addition, the ways in which we learn are not conducive to every single person. So part of this inspiration is both an accessibility issue in terms of accommodating different learning styles, different people, and different economic statuses, as well as just providing multiple. So we have that aspect of it, which is actually like the how you give access to this type of information and education. And then also applying that to what's going to be relevant moving forward. So this is really a long way to say that I see DigiLab Studio as really a place to both learn as well as work and make education accessible, as well as diverse in the way that we teach and workshop and deliver information as more of a collaborative process, and then apply that in real jobs. So there'll be two components to this. It'll be both educational and then also applied work as well. And so I'll get into more of the specifics around this project in terms of how it's actually going to work, how long it's going to take. This is not going to be something we're going to sign up tomorrow. Again, it's just me working on this project at this point. And it will just be laying the foundation for those weekends that I have, the extra hours, but really with the goal of, hey, how can we make education more accessible and then also more accommodating to the next generation? I just think that the ways in which we learn now are just so different than they were in the past. And frankly, the university system just hasn't caught up. And we need to have more educational centers and collaborative workshop environments that will be more accommodating for people, as well as make it more accessible as an entry point. So right now there's just way too many barriers to get into a grad school or educational program. You need to have a certain, I won't get into all the things, but you need a lot in terms of even just getting into that step. There's just way too many barriers to entry, both financial, where you live, so on and so forth. So that's this project. I'm excited about it. I'm excited to talk about it a little bit more. Just let me know if you have any questions about it in the chat and what you would want to see in sort of this like collaborative digital studio that's both like educational but also provide work for people. If you have additional ideas of what this could look like, let me know. Always curious to hear. Okay, so we're going to jump into some of the fun stuff, the career items. Now that I've rambled about Nate Studio Desk and the Digital Lab Studios, we're going to get into some career stuff, charting your own journey, taking control of what's next for you. So the first item I think is really important, which is to reflect on your own position and your own career thus far. And really just taking the time to start to write out where you've been, what you've done, and start to really understand it and build a narrative around what has happened in your career thus far. And this is really helpful just to start to build clarity in terms of where I've been and then where I want to go next in the future. And for instance, in my case, it's been really challenging to gain clarity on my career path because it's really been all over the place. I worked in digital fabrication. I worked in construction. I've done residential construction. I worked in the educational, so I've been a professor, taught digital fabrication courses, taught design studios, worked at architecture firms, and was a designer and architect at an architecture firm, and then worked in tech, both in environmental items, and then now in product strategy. So I've touched the AEC industry in a lot of different roles and responsibilities, and especially when I was sort of in the midst of those different career transitions, kind of going from construction to design, and then from design to tech, or actually it was construction to design to education, education to design, and then design to tech. I lost my train of thought, but with each one of those transitions, as you're going through it, it is challenging to sort of start to draw that through line of what am I passionate about? What do I care about? What are the things that I tend to be good at? And what are the things that are sort of a struggle and I don't receive as much feedback? We'll get into some actionable ways to make these transitions and some nuances around passion in a little bit. But the first item is to reflect on your career and start to draw those through lines between the different positions that you've had. So in my case, some of those through lines was education, teaching other people, and working with other people. And really the biggest reward in terms of just working in teams and getting projects done collaboratively, as well as educating and learning along the way as well. So those really, through all my different positions, have had some element of both working with other people as well as teaching and educating, which involves learning. So so that's the reflect, and then as well as so reflect on the past, and then also the goal here is to not make any changes when you are sort of reactionary changes, I guess I would say. So the goal would be to do this in as strategic way as possible, and operate from really a position of having more control. So not reaching a place of burnout and then just jumping ship and then making significant changes. But there's definitely ways to do this in a more thoughtful approach. Okay, so if you are considering what's the next steps for you, that could mean a career change. That could not mean a career change. I think we too often hear that we need to leave architecture in order to be satisfied in our career. And I just think that's false. I think you can find the firm that fits your needs, wants, and that fits you, and whatever your priorities are at that moment. It's a matter of really just taking action and finding those opportunities. So I don't think that this necessarily has to mean transitioning out of architecture. I think literally every single industry has its own challenges, and it's not like architecture is alone. We can get into some of the cultural issues that have especially come out recently, but you get this in every industry. This is not just unique to architecture, and architecture is too frequently a target and not really clearly identifying what is unique to architecture and what is unique to specific industries and what is not. Some of these things are not unique to architecture. Long way of saying I don't think you need to leave the architecture industry, but you can weigh the pros and cons of potential career changes, and then also just address some concerns and fears related to transitioning. The most important part of this next aspect, though, in terms of what's the next step for you, is a nice exercise that you can do, which is called the 3 Whys. Thank you, Rick Jones, for this recommendation. But this recommendation is based on evaluating your wants, needs, and why to really understand what you want to do next. So being really clear about your goals and where you want to move forward in the future, assessing what your wants, needs, and whys are. And part of this process is really nice to do, and you'll notice that as you move through your career and as you move through different positions that your priorities might shift. So at some point, your priority might be more towards learning and apprenticeship, getting specific opportunities. Other times it might be more financially based. Maybe it's more based on freedom and flexibility. So these priorities and wants, needs, and whys will change over time, and that's okay. So one of the exercises you can do is the 3 Whys, and you literally just write down, why do I want to change in my current position, or take this next step in my career, or change industries? Write that down. And you might be, the first whys, you might be just like super frustrated and you're just, I hate this job so much. But you look at that list, you read the 3 Whys, and then you go ahead and do that exercise again. Write down the next 3 Whys, read that, and then you write down the next 3 Whys. And as you start to boil this down, it just starts to become a little bit more clear. Is it the job itself? Is it the people that you're working with? Is it that you have a toxic manager and haven't even recognized that you do? What aspects of your position do you appreciate and like and get energy from? And what aspects of your job do you not get energy from or positive feedback from? Okay. And then and that's more so the personal sort of like passion side of things. And there's a lot of mixed advice in terms of should you follow your passion or not. And I do think it's important to align on your goals and values. And that's part of the why exercise as well is starting to build up your values and your goals and what brings you energy into your work. And oftentimes it's not industry specific. And it might be something as broad as I really like to work with other people, or I really like to come up with creative ideas, or a number of other items. So being really clear about some of your goals and values in terms of for my goals and values, it's like I really want to help other people. That is what drives me. That's what energizes me, is when I can actually provide value to my team, to my company, to whatever project that I'm working on. The more that I can provide value in whatever context that is, the more that energizes me and gets me up in the morning to really like work hard at delivering that every single day. And that goes along with also like working with other people as well. And that's also why I enjoy teaching, because I feel like I can at times, maybe not in a live stream, but through the courses that I create that are a little bit more curated, deliver that education and knowledge to people, which by the way is a two-way process. Sorry, rant. Okay, so going back to the self-assessment, we're looking at not just identifying, okay, these are the things that I like, these are the things that I don't, these are the things that come easier, these are the things that don't, but also identifying your skills, both soft and hard skills, the tools that you know, and also strengths, weaknesses. And there is this amazing tool. And by the way, this is not sponsored by Teal. If they want to sponsor me, great, but I don't have any sponsors at this point. As much as possible, I'm trying to resist sponsorship, but I'm sure at some point I'll need to make some money to make this work. But so we have the Teal HQ Tools Work Styles. And the reason why I love this tool so much is that it's a survey, you fill it out, and it will identify your skills, your strengths, your weaknesses, what comes easy, what doesn't. And it starts to identify your different work styles. And what I love about this tool, again, this is not sponsored by Teal, is that you can send the work style assessment to your peers. And not only that, you can send it to both your friends and family, your colleague, and then your work colleagues. And so when I did this, I actually might just bring it up right now. I might as well. When I was looking at a career transition, I went through this exercise, and we'll just go through the summary. And it will actually show you what motivates you, what animates you, and it has these numbers, and it also will chart what your family thinks of you, what your coworkers think, as well as just like other people. And it puts it in this context of what comes easy and what takes effort. And then it sort of categorizes these into start and finish. So for instance, like my work colleagues might think start, finish. Anyway, so I won't get into the specifics of these, but what's cool about this is you can start to see how other people, your 360, I want to see, yeah, here we go. I might need to blank these names out, but you can see how multiple people, I won't show this too long because I don't want to reveal different people's identities, but the main point here is that it will show you how people respond, and you'll see, oh, my family thinks I'm methodical, my work colleagues think I'm more enthusiastic, and then you start to parse out, okay, what is more on the work side, what's on the family side, and then really start to see the consistencies. And why I like these exercises is it's a really good way to get to know yourself. So we all think that we know ourselves, but it actually takes some time to really understand what are the broader trends. And what's really powerful about this exercise is the clearer you are in understanding yourself, then you can communicate that to your manager, to the people that you work with, and just let them know. Say, hey, these are some of my weaknesses. I want you to be aware of that. And this is how I've sort of coped with this in the past. And it really helps them as well understand, okay, this is this individual. He tends to struggle in this area, but that means he's really strong in this other area, and helps through that process. So that's what I really like about the work styles assessment. It's both good as just being self-conscious in terms of what are your tendencies, reflecting on that, and then improving on some of those if there are some that aren't really in alignment. And then going and communicating that with the people that you work with, and starting to really like work on both those things that take effort and that come easy. And then also finding those opportunities where, hey, these are the things that come really easy. I'm going to do those really well, and then communicate those things that don't come easy. Okay. So that is identifying skills. The next aspect, so that's kind of like the reflection. We're still in reflection. But that's both a personal reflection, being clear about your vision and your values and your goals, your wants and your needs, and then self-assessing. So understanding your strengths and your weaknesses, what you're good at, what you're not, being self-aware, communicating with your coworkers, and then we have the researching alternative career paths beyond the AEC industry, or maybe just pivots within your industry as well. It might not be an architecture firm, maybe it's a real estate firm, maybe it's a construction management job, maybe it's a consultancy related role. There's a lot of potentials to pivot with the job that you have. And there's also an opportunity to go to another firm that might solve some of the struggles that you have been having at a particular architecture firm. The main thing, though, is to really be clear about, you don't necessarily want to laterally move into and find yourself in a similar situation. That's really the aspect that you want to try to avoid. And that's why partly it's really helpful to do those awareness exercises so that you can identify some of those traps that can happen and move beyond those. And then as well as really understanding, okay, what is really the problem here? Is it that is it me, or is it you? And sort of starting to work through that very clearly. And then that will make, if you need to leave the architecture industry or not, just a little bit more clear. Or looking for an adjacent opportunity. Or you decide that you want to go off and do your own thing. Okay. The goal here, though, is to have a solid plan. I'm just going to go full screen because I'm not using this anymore. So yeah, anyways, the goal here is to have a solid plan and not work in a reactionary way. So being really clear about what is my current position, why am I having these current struggles, what can I do in my current position to address those struggles, take action on those, see if that changes anything. If you are interested in transitioning to a new career as well, a new position, or into another industry, you can also start to look for opportunities within your current firm or position. For instance, if you work at a company and are interested in marketing or any number of items, you can start to ask for certain assignments or request that you take on additional work in a specific area. So for instance, if you're interested in getting involved in tech, even if there's any digital transformation initiatives at your firm, you can go ahead and lead that or contribute to that. And then you can be involved in digital transformation. And this starts to get at understanding what those the skills that you can leverage to another career. So, for instance, when I worked at one firm that had a really good BIM process, and we're pretty on it in terms of the digital tools that they used. Then I worked at two other firms that maybe weren't quite there in terms of their digital literacy. And so in those positions, I saw an opportunity to deliver value to the firm by developing their digital standards and digital transformation efforts. And that also meant just, hey, we're using BIM, let's use it in a better way. Let's standardize more things. Let's make the templates a lot cleaner and better, improve those. So that might have not been my full-time position at that firm, but it served as a really good leverage point to say, when I did interview with my first tech company, say, hey, I've been involved in digital transformation for the last 4 years. I've worked at crusty architecture firms that are behind on technology, and I've helped them come up to speed and deliver better results as a result of that effort. I've understood why architects don't want to transition to new technologies. So I'm going to be your adoption champion. So using those past skills, sometimes it's really just about identifying what can I do in my current position that I can then leverage or use in the future for that next position that I have. Again, that requires going back to being clear about what you want to do next and what that next position is. So if you want to take on more of like a management role, taking on more managing responsibilities at your firm. So first and foremost, it's like looking locally and then just radiating outwards in terms of the types of actions that you can take. The most important thing, though, is you can't just think about these things. You actually need to take concrete actions and take initiative and take it on. Do it. Just do it. And as Arnold Schwarzenegger says, do it now. So that is navigating a transition. Another aspect of this is leveraging your network and connections. So having lunch with people, talking with people, getting out there and making those connections and having those conversations. And if you're clear on those next steps that you want to do, then you can put yourself in those spaces where those people are. So it just would depend on your context, but that could mean getting more involved in the AIA, could mean getting involved with another organization and just starting to ask questions and build some connections with those people. And then, so that's navigating the transition. And then seeking support and guidance, using mentors, coaches, and career advisors for guidance, learning from the experience of others who have made successful career changes, engaging with professional associations and communities for support. So in terms of mentors, of course, you can reach out to people. And part of this is that research element, which is looking at people that are maybe like one or two steps beyond where you're at or where you want to go, see what they've done in the past, and then potentially reaching out to them and start to understand, hey, how did you make that step in your career? Similarly, if there's like someone at your company who's like younger, but they're in more of a management role or like a higher position and they're younger, you're like, they have similar amount of experience, but they have a lot more responsibility. Learn from them. What did they do? Talk to them, understand their mentality. How did they sort of make that happen for themselves? I don't think it was just assigned to them. Speaking of assignment, and I'll go back to our last point before we open this up to a live Q&A, but there are two, going back to that in terms of assignments and not, a lot of the times you don't have that choice, and it's really just a matter of whatever assignment you get, you accelerate at that specific assignment. So that's where when you look at people that maybe are, let's say you're working at an architecture firm, there's a young leader, and you're trying to understand what did they do, what types of actions did they take to get to that position. And it might not be as simple as just asking, hey, I want a management position. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. You have to sometimes demonstrate your skills and in other areas, and then take initiative in order to do those things within your current position, to demonstrate that you are capable and ready of doing that thing. But in that case, you would want to understand, okay, what does that person do really well? Where am I sort of not, maybe, where do I sort of fall short of that? And then I can start to work on those items and then hopefully excel in those things. Okay, so then next up we have embracing change and growth. So this is more of a mindset. And I know all of you will roll your eyes when you hear the term like growth mindset, and that whole, it's almost like an industry of knowledge that has to do with growth mindset. It's a whole topic. There's books on it, and so on and so forth. What I want to talk about is, I want to talk about growth mindset in a little bit of a different context and sort of help sort of like understand how I interpret this idea, which is, I think it's important to just set those sights a lot higher than you think is possible. So you can set those goals, those opportunities, and that vision for yourself a lot higher than whatever you think those expectations are of yourself. And I've gone back and forth in terms of, do I like goals? Do I not? I think goals are really helpful, and setting high and aggressive goals is, and often as well, can be a motivating factor. But for me, at least, I need to have that higher vision in order for me to get excited about reaching that specific goal that sort of gets to that larger vision. So that's why I encourage people to just go for it. What is that thing that you really want? And then taking action towards that goal. And I think too often we just set our sights a little bit too low, and I'm guilty of this as well. Set our sights a little bit too low, and then because we want to have a realistic thing that we can actually hit, versus setting it a lot higher, and then you're more likely to take more actions in order to get to that thing, because you're like, whoa, that's really, really cool. That would be really, really cool if we could get there. Now I'm going to be more motivated to take those additional actions, work those extra hours or on the weekends to get to that place, so that you can have a larger impact and really embrace the kind of maximum success, however you define that success to be. And so that's another aspect where I think, growth mindset maybe sometimes gets, people give it a hard time because it's more put into the context of making money or capitalism or kind of like the system. But I want to be clear, like, this is really about what is your vision for the future, setting those sights high, and then taking a lot more actions to actually get to that place that you want to go. So there's a twofold aspect to this, which is adjusting your mindset to just ramp up where you think you can go, and then also adjusting your mindset to say, whatever I think I need to do to get to that level, I need to do a lot more to actually even get to that level. But you're more likely to take those actions, both small and big, if that's a really exciting thing that you want to get to. Okay, that is all I have for today. And let me know if you thought this was helpful. And I'm excited you joined. Thanks for joining. And you can feel free to open any Q&A questions, any questions that you have in terms of transitioning to tech, transitioning to different industries, leveraging your current situation and identifying the transferable skills to a new industry, just let me know in the comments below. I'm happy to answer literally any questions, and also any questions about Nate's Studio Desk as well. Happy to answer any questions on that. A couple words of advice. We have, to wrap it up, since I'm not seeing any questions just yet, and it's about to rain. Decision-making frameworks discuss the effectiveness of reverse engineering admirable individuals' career paths and using strategies to make those career moves. So reversing other individuals' career paths, taking charge of your own career journey, gaining the experience that you need in order to make those next steps for you, whatever those next steps are, visualizing your ideal life, and then taking massive action to get there. And when you visualize that ideal life, it can be high, it can be wonderful, and it is not unrealistic. You just have to take the actions and the initiatives to get there. And then setting goals, assessing yourself, self-awareness. Always good to have a backup plan. So especially if you're dealing with specific visa issues, having a backup plan. And then embracing the longer term mindset. This is not going to happen overnight. It's going to take time. Trusting your instincts. Does this feel right? Do I feel good with this situation? I think we often overlook the fact of, if you join a company, you want to be comfortable with what their mission is, what their values are, and the type of work that they're doing is really important, because you're getting behind that and you're supporting that vision. And so that North Star for whatever your company project is, I do think is really important. And that definitely drives my energy towards whatever work that I'm doing. If that is something that's sort of in alignment with my goals and values, as well as something that I believe in will actually bring value to other people. So that's always been really important to me, that there's alignment between where I work. I know there's been some controversy around that, like your work shouldn't be your values, but I do think it's important to not necessarily have it work in reverse, like, oh, this is my company values, those are my values, but just some alignment there, that whatever you are passionate about and what you care about. Anyways, long story, just having some alignment between that mission and what you get excited about. And then also embracing your unique journey. I think we all have these incredible, unique journeys, and they will take you in different ways. You'll have different jobs and different careers. And no matter where you work, you can learn so much from whatever company you are currently working at. They are going to do things better. They're going to do some things better than any other company. And you want to learn those best practices and learn those things that they don't do well and learn from those. But I'm a firm believer in that wherever you work, you can learn so much. And sometimes you only realize it until you've moved to another position. You say, oh, they did that thing really well. And then lastly, pursuing energy instead of passion. I'm a little bit mixed on this. But there has been, this is somewhat backed up in research, but really the importance of focusing on activities that energize you and interest you, rather than solely pursuing a passion when making career decisions. So finding work that energizes you to guide your career direction, even if you haven't pinpointed a strong passion. And I think this focus on energy versus passion is actually really helpful, because it's sometimes hard to understand what is my actual passion, and not something, oh, it's raining, not something that I'm just sort of like making up or that I've heard in the past, but something that actually energizes the work, the type of work that I do. That type of work, does that type of work energize you? And that's a slightly different question in terms of, oh, I'm passionate about the environment or I'm passionate about people. What is the type of work that you're doing that energizes you? And then you can do that type of work. And if there's a mission then you can that you're passionate about, then you can find opportunities to align with that mission as well. So for instance, I get energized about talking to other people, researching, coming up with creative ideas, and delivering value, supporting my team, helping form the strategic vision of any kind of product to deliver more value to the people who use the tool. That's all this kind of types of work that energizes me. And then some of those passion elements, which is, hey, how do we deliver better space to the people that use it? So that's more of the passion aspect. And it's great when those two things can align, but also not losing sight over what are those activities that actually energize me? Because you want to bring energy to your work and the types of projects that you're working on. Okay. Thank you for joining. I always love doing a live session. You are all awesome, and I'll see you around.